When we talk about a dog's feelings being hurt, we're not talking about emotions the way humans experience them. Dogs don't replay moments, assign blame, or hold grudges. What they experience is something quieter, a small drop in safety, a break in predictability, a moment when the environment feels less clear. Research in canine behavior consistently shows that dogs rely more on emotional consistency and routine than on single events. It's repeated shifts in tone, timing, and presence that affect them most, and those shifts rarely come from bad intentions. They come from everyday moments we barely notice. Dogs build trust through patterns, and when those patterns change, even briefly, their internal state adjusts, not loudly, but enough to matter. If you want to understand your dog beyond surface behavior, consider subscribing, because one of the most important patterns they rely on appears every single day. Moment 1. When daily routines change without warning. Dogs don't experience days as schedules. They experience them as patterns. Meals arriving when expected, walks happening in familiar windows, and moments of rest and connection repeating in ways that feel steady all help a dog's body relax. When the environment feels readable, nothing needs to be monitored closely. But when routines shift suddenly, a skipped walk, a delayed meal, an unpredictable day, the dog doesn't understand why. They only feel that something dependable has changed. This often shows up quietly through more following, more checking in, or staying closer than usual. They're not being needy. They're seeking confirmation that the structure they rely on is still intact. Consistency doesn't mean doing everything at the same minute every day. It means helping your dog anticipate change through calm signals, familiar phrases, and steady tone. Those small cues protect emotional balance when routines can't stay the same. Moment 2. When accidents are addressed after the moment. Dogs live in the present moment. Once an accident has happened and time passes, the emotional context is gone. Your dog isn't holding the memory or connecting cause and effect anymore. So when a reaction comes later, the dog doesn't experience correction. They experience a sudden shift. Your tone tightens, your energy changes, and the space feels different without explanation. From the dog's point of view, something safe just became unclear. Over time, repeated moments like this don't create understanding, they create caution. Not guilt or awareness, just uncertainty about what caused the change in your mood. Learning happens when timing is clear, and trust happens when responses stay connected to the moment itself. When reactions match what's happening now, dogs stay confident. When timing stays clean, emotional safety stays intact. Clarity doesn't just teach behavior, it protects the relationship. Moment 3. When hands come from above. Many dogs allow head pats, but that doesn't mean they feel comfortable with them. From a dog's perspective, movement is read before intention, and a hand coming down from above can feel sudden and invasive, especially when it's unexpected. This isn't about disliking affection, it's about how approach is interpreted. Dogs watch posture, angle, and speed. When touch comes from the side and a dog has time to see it coming, their body stays relaxed. When a dog leans in, softens, or moves closer on their own, that's a clear signal of comfort. Affection works best when it's invited rather than imposed. Pausing before reaching, letting the dog close the distance, and paying attention to small reactions don't reduce affection, they increase trust. When touch feels predictable, it feels safe. Moment 4. When tone changes sharply. Dogs don't process language the way humans do. They process emotional signals. A sudden edge in your voice, a raised volume, or a quick burst of intensity doesn't sound like guidance to a dog, it sounds like alert. When sharp tones appear often, dogs don't become more obedient, they become more cautious. They start watching instead of relaxing. A calm, steady tone tells a dog what the environment feels like and whether they can settle or need to stay on guard. This doesn't mean never correcting behavior. It means keeping the emotional signal consistent. Predictability allows dogs to feel safe enough to listen. Not perfection, just steadiness. When your tone stays readable, your dog doesn't have to guess what comes next. And when guessing stops, trust has room to grow. Dogs don't process language the way humans do. They process emotional signals. A sudden edge in your voice, a raised volume, or a quick burst of intensity doesn't sound like guidance to a dog. It sounds like alert. When sharp tones appear often, dogs don't become more obedient. They become more cautious. They start watching instead of relaxing. A calm, steady tone tells a dog what the environment feels like and whether they can settle or need to stay on guard. This doesn't mean never correcting behavior. It means keeping the emotional signal consistent. Predictability allows dogs to feel safe enough to listen. Not perfection, just steadiness. When your tone stays readable, your dog doesn't have to guess what comes next. And when guessing stops, trust has room to grow. Moment 5. When connection is postponed too often. Dogs don't need constant interaction. They need reliable connection. Small moments that happen regularly, a short walk, sitting nearby, or a calm check-in that asks for nothing, help regulate their nervous system. When these moments disappear too often, dogs don't label it as rejection. They feel uncertainty. They start adjusting their behavior to regain closeness by staying nearer, interrupting more, or seeking reassurance in subtle ways. This isn't attention-seeking, it's connection-seeking. Predictable presence helps a dog's nervous system settle and reminds them that closeness still exists. Even on busy days, connection doesn't have to be long, it just has to be dependable. When your dog can count on shared moments, they don't need to search for them. Moment 6. When fear is dismissed or minimized. Fear doesn't need explanation to be real. A loud noise, a sudden flash, or an unfamiliar sound can trigger it instantly. When fear shows up, dogs aren't looking for reasoning, they're looking for safety. Laughing it off, ignoring it, or acting as if nothing happened doesn't build confidence. It leaves the dog alone inside the fear. What helps isn't excitement or reassurance overload, but calm presence. A steady body, softer tone, and stillness signal protection. When a dog feels supported during fear, the nervous system can settle again, and that moment matters. Trust isn't built when everything feels fine. It's built when something feels wrong and safety stays present anyway. Moment 7. When meals are interrupted suddenly. For dogs, food is tied to security, not dominance or control, but safety. When meals are interrupted abruptly, such as hands reaching in or bowls removed without warning, the dog doesn't feel corrected. They feel uncertainty. Not aggression, but tension. Predictable mealtime patterns help dogs relax around food by knowing when meals start, when they end, and that their space will be respected. When meals feel calm, the dog's body settles, and that calm carries beyond the bowl. Mealtime isn't just about eating, it's about reassurance. Consistency here teaches your dog that resources are safe, and safety reduces stress everywhere else. Moment 8. When physical pushing replaces communication. Physical pushing doesn't explain boundaries to a dog. It changes how the moment feels. Dogs experience touch as meaning, not instruction. So when a push happens, it doesn't register as guidance. It registers as rejection, especially when it comes without warning. In that instant, the emotional signal becomes unclear. The dog isn't learning where the boundary is. They're trying to understand why closeness suddenly felt unsafe. Clear communication works differently. A calm verbal cue, a brief pause, or redirection towards something appropriate gives the dog information. These responses show what behavior works, not just what behavior stops. Boundaries are easiest for dogs to respect when they feel predictable, arrive calmly, and make sense in the moment they appear. Clear communication builds confidence. And confident dogs don't push limits to test connection. They understand it. Moment 9. When subtle signals go unnoticed. Dogs rarely begin communication in obvious ways. They start quietly with a brief glance, a gentle paw, or a small shift closer. These signals aren't demands, they're invitations to connect. When these cues go unnoticed repeatedly, dogs don't stop having needs. They lose confidence in expressing them. Some try harder by following more closely or interrupting more often, while others withdraw and stop asking altogether. Both responses come from uncertainty about whether communication is being received. Acknowledgement doesn't mean fixing anything immediately. It simply requires awareness. A brief pause, eye contact, or calm word tells your dog, "I see you." Being seen is a core part of emotional safety, and when dogs feel understood, their communication stays soft and their body relaxes. Moment 10. When safe spaces become discipline. Dogs rely on certain places to regulate themselves when the world feels overwhelming. A crate, a bed, or a quiet corner they choose. These aren't just spots in the house. They're emotional anchors that signal safety. When a safe space becomes linked with discipline, that signal changes. The place that once meant calm begins to carry tension instead. The shift is subtle at first, but over time, dogs may hesitate before entering, settle less deeply, or choose other places to rest. Safe spaces work best when nothing unexpected happens there. No corrections, raised tone, or emotional pressure. When dogs know they can retreat without consequence, their nervous system settles faster, and they recover from stress more easily. Protecting these spaces protects emotional balance. Moment 11. When stress passes without reconnection. Stress doesn't end the moment a trigger disappears. After a loud sound or tense interaction, a dog's nervous system often stays alert longer than the environment suggests. In those moments, dogs look for confirmation that the world is safe again. When that signal doesn't arrive, they may remain slightly on edge, watching and waiting. A brief moment of reconnection, calm presence, steady posture, softer tone, or shared stillness can change that completely. Reconnection tells your dog the moment has passed and that they don't need to stay alert. When this happens consistently, dogs recover from stress more easily and trust that reassurance will come. The bottom line: what dogs actually measure. Dogs don't measure love by how perfectly we behave. They measure it by what stays consistent, a tone that doesn't suddenly shift, routines that remain familiar, and moments of calm reassurance that arrive when they're needed most. To a dog, safety is what love feels like. When safety stays intact, trust doesn't have to be earned over and over again. It settles quietly into everyday life. That's why small adjustments matter more than big gestures. Not doing more, but doing a few things with more clarity and steadiness. If understanding your dog on this deeper level matters to you, consider subscribing, because when connection feels safe, it grows naturally, without effort and without force.